Hey again, we are here with another weekly update. Yay, I'm actually doing it 2 weeks in a row. That's an accomplishment. Let's see, so it has been, I guess, only 5 days since my last video came out, but technically 6 days since I actually recorded the thing. So I'm going to go ahead and do an update today because I have the time and I will not have time later this week, so we're doing it now. Let's see, I'm just going to go over a little recap of this past week. I worked on several different projects, last week, this week. Since last time I talked to you guys, I completed, a lot of plotting on my epic fantasy Reign of Dust. I used my new outlining software, and basically I spent quite a bit of time going through the back half of that novel and plotting out scene by scene what should happen from about the midpoint until the climax. So I have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen at the climax, of course, and have for a little while now, but all the in-between time from the midpoint to the climax, I just had vague notions of what should happen, as I told you the last time I chatted with you all, but I didn't know how exactly that it was going to happen. So what I did this past week was to sit down and take the time to think through and document the events that would need to take place. I documented the how, not only the what. So I managed to go ahead and summarize scene by scene from the midpoint to the climax. So I am in a much better spot now with the epic fantasy Reign of Dust than I was last week. And I only got about 1,000 new words written on that novel in the last 6 days. But the good news is that 1,000 words went really fast, came out real fast, very easily. So I definitely am excited to work on that project again. So knowing where it's going has definitely upped the motivation and enthusiasm for that project again. So I am very comfortable with where that one is at right now, and I'm really excited to get back into, actually writing the thing again, which will be a priority in the next week coming up here. My second project is a humorous sci-fi. It will be a series, and I'm actually writing that one with another author. It will be my first collaboration project, my first project as a co-author. So that's kind of interesting. I'm not sure, we haven't quite figured out how we're going to split up the writing of it yet. But we're actually going to have a meeting later this week to talk about that and hammer that out. But we do now have the entire book one plotted, which is another thing I did these last 6 days. Not only did I plot out that section of Reign of Dust, but I went through the 42 emails that I've exchanged with my co-author and picked out plot points from those emails that we had discussed and put them all into the outlining software in a chronological order and kind of made sense of it. And we have a pretty good solid plot arc for book one. I'm really excited for that project also. That should be really fun. Plus, it's my first humorous book, and so I'm really excited to kind of take a break from the serious, 500-page epic to do something that's a little bit more lighthearted and fun. So that's been awesome. And then the third project that is not started yet, but it is it's a shared universe project. So basically a shared universe is when a group of authors gets together to create an entire universe, and then different authors tell different stories within that same universe. So it's kind of like the different authors who write books in the Star Wars universe. So it's similar to that. So we would create our own universe, our own original universe, and then each author would choose a story to tell within that universe. So that's a sort of a new thing that a lot of indie authors are starting to do more and more. these days, and I've always been interested in checking it out, but there's never been a shared universe that I was really all that excited to write in. But this one I am really excited to write in. I'm very excited about this idea. So I will be attending a meeting about that next week, and we'll go over some details on that within the group. And so that's going to be awesome. But that one's not, I won't be starting on that one. I don't even have an idea for what I'll write in that universe yet. So that one's a ways off, but that's something that's simmering right now. I have realized, for me, I definitely need to let ideas simmer for a while before I can start working on them, which is why I plan so far ahead. I mentioned last week the Steampunk Adventure series. I have not started that one yet either. But, again with the plotting, this past week was a lot of plotting. I did not plot book one for that series yet, but I did do some character work, which I will get into here a little bit, that whole process. But I did do some character work for the Steampunk of book one this past week also. And then other than that, I do have a freelance editing project that I am working on right now. So I edited about 25 pages of a manuscript for a client this past week. So it has been very busy. On top of that, of course, you know, I have my regular job. And I also, I was a mystery reader for my son's first grade class. I read them my children's book, Breakfast Time on the Farm, and they loved it. They thought it was so cool that it was a book that I wrote and that my son was actually in the book. They loved that. And then this morning, actually, I just went and talked to his class for Career Week about being an indie author. So it's been kind of crazy, but all good things, right? So that is what I accomplished in the past 6 days. This coming weekend, we are going to Arizona for a long weekend, so that should be fun. Probably won't get a lot done because it's going to be sort of like a mini vacation, but I love planes because I can usually get a lot done on planes. So we will see how that goes, but that's the plan. Oh, the other thing I wanted to talk about today was I kind of wanted to go into a little bit of my new process for starting a new book. Okay, so my new process for writing a book, and we'll see how well this works. So far, it seems to be working really well, but I haven't actually started a draft of a book using this new process yet. So that's where I will find out if this process really works for me, is when I get into the drafting phase. With the epic fantasy novel, granted, the whole idea for it changed in the middle of it, which is never a good thing to do, but that's one of the things that has prompted my new process. With the new process, I plot very, very, very much in detail, which theoretically should prevent me from changing the entire book in the middle of writing it and or having to rewrite most of the book after I finish the draft. Ideally, what I want to do is finish the first draft and then edit it lightly and then be able to send it off to professional editors and beta readers, and then edit it based on their feedback, and then publish it. But in the past, what's been happening to me is I write the first draft and realize it's not really the book I was trying to write, and I have to rewrite almost all of it, which is frankly a nightmare. So I've started this new process. I have a lot of tools that I'm using. My very favorite book, new favorite craft book, is Structuring Your Novel by K.M. Weiland. This book was recommended to me by Katie Cross, who helped me out a ton as far as sorting out the problems I was having with my epic fantasy novel when I changed it all up, like I said. But then I read this book, and then I read it again. I highlighted a lot of stuff in here. So when I read through it the second time, I made my own notes. Voila! So now basically I use my notes instead of having to refer to the book every single time. It is about story structure, but the thing that I loved about the way K.M. Weiland talks about it is that she directly ties the structure of the book to the character's development and the character arc and what your character should be doing or feeling or thinking at certain times in the book. And since I write very character-driven stories, that really finally clicked for me more than most of the other structure books that I've read in the past. So that is why I made my lovely notes here. Basically, I just went through and wrote down, of course, all the most important things that should happen in each part of your book. I also bought her Outlining Your Novel software, and I'll put a link to that in the description if you want to check it out, because it is amazing. It's exactly what I needed, basically, for this new process I'm trying out. But I will take the these notes, and then I will take the Outlining Your Novel software, and I will go through it's under Outline, the Outline tab, and then the drop down it says Story Structure, and that's the tab I've been using the most. I start there, and because it has little space for each of the main points of your story structure, and then I will go through there and sort of brainstorm ideas for each main point of the story. And then another thing I do, which I got this idea from Joe Nassis in his Story Engines course, which I have not taken the course, but I did take the webinar to get the basic idea. I write my scenes on index cards. So all of these are scenes. So what I generally do is I do the overall arching storyline in Outlining Your Novel software. Then I drill down in more detail on the index cards. And each index card is a scene, basically, summarized. So I will put in all the little in-between filler scenes on these index cards. And then I will input them into Scrivener. Or sometimes I skip the index card step, because Scrivener also, as those of you who use Scrivener know, Scrivener has virtual index cards in the program itself. So if I don't do the physical index cards, I will go into Scrivener and do the same thing, drill down scene by scene to link all the big plot events together. So that is what I have been doing so far, and it's been working a lot better than what I used to do, which was plot maybe 4 of the big events and then just sort of wing it. And that has been a disaster for me. So personally, obviously I am a heavy plotter, so that's what I'm going to do from now on. With the Steampunk Book 1, and actually a little bit with the humorous sci-fi collaboration project, we actually started with the characters first. And I think that is super ideal for me. So, by starting with the characters first, what I've been doing is I recently bought the Emotional Wound Thesaurus. I'll put a link in the description again. It's pretty much the most amazing book ever. I have the Kindle version, which I really need to get the print version, because I feel like it would be easier to flip to different wounds, but I have it on the Kindle for now. But I create my characters first for the Steampunk for book 1. I created the characters. That's going to be 2 main characters, a guy and a girl. Right now their names are Lily and Zachary. Might change. But basically I took Lily and Zach and I decided what is their emotional wound. And then from that, their personalities developed, their backstories developed. The character work I said that I had done this past week was all about backstory. I just fleshed out their backstories from the time they were born until the time they went out to do the things that eventually got them to meet. Book 1 starts off with them already knowing each other, but of course I also came up with the backstory of how they originally met, and I'll probably write that as like a little side bonus story at some point, but Book 1 won't focus on that. But I still, of course, had to come up with all that, right? And then, from their backstory and their emotional wound, I then created their character arc. And then the plot for Book 1 is actually going to come from their character arc, which is one of the cool things that, I got from structuring your novel, and how the plot directly ties into the character arc. And it made me approach, plotting a book in an entirely different way. So with the steampunk book, I started with the characters and their problems, basically, their baggage, and then thought of a plot that would carry them along an arc to then realize something, or, get over a part of their past, or heal from something that had happened to them in the past. And I ended up structuring the book more like that. And I think that's actually going to be awesome. We'll see, though. So, that was a lot. That was a lot more than last week. I'm going to stop it now because I think I've been blabbing for way too long. Thank you for listening. Hopefully you found it at least mildly interesting. For next week, I'm going to try to write more words on Rain of Dust. I'm going to, of course, try to get more edits done for my client. I'm going to have those 2 meetings about the collaboration project in the shared universe. And the steampunk will probably keep simmering. I'm not going to work too much more on that one for right now, but it's definitely in the back of my mind. And as I get ideas, I will put them in the outlining software so I don't lose them. And I think that is about it for me. So anything you want to talk about, anything you want to ask, put it in the comments, and we'll get to it next week. All right. Thanks for watching. Bye.